found Australia so far?
This is my third time here, so I really like it over here because it's just so easy going basically. This is my longest time in Melbourne now. I got it back here on Tuesday or something and just hung out, and it's been really good actually. Like, all the gigs have been good. I played in Melbourne last Thursday and then Brisbane, Sydney and Wollongong, which was a bit of an experience, but it was nice all the same. Like, I've never been to a place like that.
A fun experience?
Yeah, for sure. It's the first time I've been on someone's shoulders for a long time, is all I'm going to say. But yeah, it was fun.
And this is the second time around that you play, as far as playing in Melbourne goes, the second time that you played at the Prince venue?
This was, the second time. The first time I played last year was with Guy Gerber and Dixon, and then this time was just on my own, and it was really, really good. I mean, it was packed, the crowd were really nice. Like, I find actually that Sydney and Melbourne, for my kind of sound, are kind of the best places for me to play out here.
The response was phenomenal. Like, for anyone that was in the room that night, last Thursday, absolutely packed.
It was good fun.
You must have been really, really pleased.
Yeah, it was good. Like I said, I mean, I just got off the back of a 24-hour flight, so I was a little bit tired going into it, but once I got there, the energy was really, really good.
And in terms of deciding what you were going to play, you said that you pack 2 USBs with you and then some backup ones.
Yeah, I've got 2 USBs that I use normally. I used to have 3 until I lost one the other day when I was a little bit drunk, maybe. I left it in the USB at snowbombing. And then I have like 2 spare ones, which just has like tracks that I know are going to work just in case these ones break down for whatever reason.
So the 2 USBs that you bring, but the other ones that you bring as backup, you keep different tracks on them?
Yes, I don't have the same one in every one, just because even if one breaks down, I know for a fact that the tracks on the other one will be able to take me through, and there'll be something that I want to play. It might annoy me a little bit because I can't play the latest records for whatever reason, but you know, it is what it is.
How do you decide what out of your own production you're going to put on? Is it whatever's recent, or is it things that you're vibing from that point in time?
Well, there's 2 things really. One is sometimes I make a track and I know it will work, and then I want to test it out. I make a lot of tracks that I really like but would never play. Just because I don't know if they're right for the kind of style that I play, and also because maybe my confidence isn't in them as much as possible. I used to never play any of my own tracks at all until a promoter pretty much shouted at me saying, "We only booked you because we wanted to hear you play your own records." And I was like, "Oh right, okay, I better start now."
When was that?
That was like 2 years ago in Ireland, and it got a bit heated, but it was fine. But now, like, and then there's some records which I'm expected to play, like Box Clever or Let It Go. To a lesser extent, maybe like Shower Scene and Inkwell, which I'm going to play in a bit. And, you know, I'm my biggest critic when it comes to my own records, so I pretty much hate everything I've done anyway. So, well, not hate, but very overcritical, and I've heard it so many times that I just think, why do these people want to hear it, you know? I know all the imperfections in every record that I've made. So I think for a while it was quite hard for me to play anything just because I was so paranoid about it. I'm getting over that a little bit now, it just depends on the crowd basically. Like, I make quite a lot of various different styles of house music, so it depends on what the crowd want to hear.
Well, you could tell that the audience really wanted to hear your production, at least in the Melbourne show. I don't know about the other shows. Yeah. With the tracks that you say you don't feel so confident in terms of playing them out, or you don't make them intending to play them out, do you end up going through the full process with them? Do you get them mastered? Do you end up loading them on your USBs when you tour?
Yeah, I mean, on my USB stick, I would say I probably play about 40% of the tracks that are on there, be it mine or other people, just because you think you like something and then you get somewhere and you try and play it once or something and then it doesn't go so well, and then the whole confidence in the track is gone. So I just don't want to play it again, basically. In terms of my own music, I guess if it's not something I make to play, for example, I'm working on my album at the moment, a lot of these tracks will be put on the album as, you don't want to, I wouldn't just want to make a record with like 12 club records on it because it would be the most boring thing in the world to me. I would never listen to that album. So it's kind of also, it's the thing, like, I got into a rut of just making the same kind of like, oh yeah, if I build this track up now, it's going to do well, like drop it into like a garagey kind of bass line or some shit like that. It will work. And it got a bit boring to me, so I guess more recently it's the tracks that I'm thinking of where I've kind of stepped away from that mould and just built something a bit more organic.
Do you feel like that process before you became organic was a bit more cynical?
Originally it wasn't, and then it got very cynical, and then I got very cynical with myself, and I went through about a period of like 5 months where I hated absolutely everything that I made. And then, yeah, I think it was very cynical. Like, I knew what would work, so I did it. Like, I knew what was making me popular, so I made it. And then I realised that this is the way to kind of kill your love for actually making music, and you just turn into a machine with no heart, with no like soul in what you're making. And yeah, I just had to pull away from it basically.
And your artist name, Huxley, is based on Aldous Huxley.
That's right.
Was that after you read A Brave New World?
It is. I was reading it at the time. When I first released house music, it was with my friend Ethel, or Tim, as he's more commonly known. And we were sending stuff off. We just finished like 4 or 5 tracks. And I needed an alias. And, you know, Huxley was as good a one as any, basically. So I borrowed it from Mr. Aldous Huxley, and then yeah, just kind of sent it off, and then we sent it off to Cecile, which was Nick Curley's label at the time, and it just, Ethel and Huxley kind of just worked.
And it's such a beautiful reflection of your production journey as well, because that idea of knowing what's popular, doing what's expected, but then realising that it might not be being true to the inner self.
Yeah, for sure. I guess that's, yeah, I've never really thought about it like that, but yeah, it kind of mimics the book, I suppose. You're a lot more deep than I am.
And did you start out through DJing or through making music?
I started very first from DJing. I started learning the guitar when I was like 7 or 8, and my parents sent me to a classical guitar player, and I just wanted to play like Bon Jovi and all that kind of shit. So I hated it, gave it up, and then my friend brought around an old school hardcore CD from DJ Psy or Slipmat or something, and I wanted some decks, so I got some decks when I was 12. And then my brother, who's actually a lot more musical than I am, was making music, and I used to just sit in for hours and watch him. And then when I was about 15, 16, I just started myself making music, but I was still DJing a little bit. Well, I was running my own parties actually at that point, just in my local town. And then, yeah, it kind of just went from there, and released my first record when I was 17, I think, 18. And that was some horrible 2-step garage record, really cheesy thing. But that kind of, my passion then more became production than DJing, and I actually stopped DJing for like 4 years until I was about 22. And then it kind of, now it's about equal, but it took me a while to get back into loving DJing again, basically.
And through the times that you've been making music, so from when you're about 14 or 15, how has your studio changed over that time?
Massively. So when I started, I don't know if anyone here has used a tracker thing. I was using a program on DOS called Impulse Tracker, where it was essentially a step up from programming in terms of the way you kind of entered each drum beat or each melodic hit or whatever. And then that was obviously just on computer, and that was with computer speakers. Moved up to hi-fi speakers, and now my studio consists of an MS-20, a micro Korg, bass station, a Juno, what else? Some Dave Smith stuff, a Mini Brute. So now I'm trying to use a lot more hardware in my records, which actually took me a while to do because I bought loads, and then it just sat in the corner of my studio, not plugged in, for about 5 years, until I moved to my new place and actually took the time to plug it all in and work out how to integrate it quickly, because I'm very much this person where I don't sit at a track for days on end. I don't come back for like a week. At most, I spend 2 days on a record, and if I can't integrate something quickly into it, then I normally fuck it off. Because I think, as a person, I don't know, I think where you're working, the creative process should be quite quick, because it means you don't have time to necessarily overthink things. People I've worked with in the past keep going back and they just fuck me off, no end, because like they'll go back to a sound which, all right, they might make it like a tiny bit better, which is fine, but I think that having something that's more raw or a bit more pure sometimes, rather than more clinical, works a lot better in music.
And in terms of you know, trying to be quick on your feet with the production, how would you manage to balance that with your touring schedule? Like, as you said, you'd come out of such a long flight when you got here and you only bring your laptop, you know, just to chill out and just to communicate. So how do you really focus that creative energy when you have the time to?
Well, I haven't made a record for the last 2 months. I haven't even sat at my computer to start anything, because I can't do anything on the road. Last time I was in Sydney, actually, I bought like a mini keyboard and like really good studio headphones and all this stuff. Sat there for a day and I just couldn't do anything. So it quite quickly became apparent that I can't do things on the road. So what I do is, when I have days at home, which luckily now after this I have like a month, which is just weekend gigs, I make sure that I spend as much time in the studio as possible. And I actually see the studio as like, I work best from about 10 o'clock in the morning till about 5 o'clock at night, and then after that I completely just cut it off. And I think you have to have the times where you're fully focused on making music, but then you also have to have the times when you're actually relaxed. If you just sit at a computer all day, night and day, just trying to force something to happen, you're gonna just make the most contrived shit that ever. Like, it's not gonna happen. I've done that before. I've sat there for like 3 days, like barely been to sleep, just got up trying to force something out, and it's just always been rubbish. So I think it's a good, I mean, touring kills me because I want to be at home making music, but at the same time you get home and you feel revitalised, and hopefully you've had a bit of inspiration along the way, like you've heard another great DJ play, or you've heard some local music, or you know, whatever. And I think it all kind of adds to like how you produce music, and all adds to how you think about making music.
And for all the producers in the room, what advice would you give them coming into CDR sessions like this?
What, giving out your demos?
Yeah, bringing in tracks, working on tracks, and being at that early point.
I would say my biggest advice is, don't rush into anything. There's so many avenues now where you can release music really quickly. And I think something like today is great, because you get to air your demos in front of loads of people, or have people who know what they're talking about actually hear that. But in house music, I don't know about other stuff, you could get Ableton on the Monday, and then the next Friday you could have made something, and some shitty label wants to release it, and you're like, oh yeah, wow, amazing. It's going to do nothing for you at the end of the day, unless you're like a genius, which is like, then fair enough. But the best way to do it is take your time, like listen to the feedback a lot, realise that criticism isn't something against you personally, it's not even against you, it's trying to help you. When I first started, there was nothing like this at all. Like, when I was first releasing music, when I was getting music together, apart from maybe forums, like, there was nothing where you could actually come in person, give your CD, and then get some feedback. That's my biggest advice. Make sure you take your time, set your goals for what labels you want to work with, where you want to be, and as much as you can, unless it's a good compromise, don't compromise that just because you think, oh, this is going to happen quicker or anything like that. Because if it happens it's just not going to work. Like, I released a lot of music on crap record labels over the years, and I regret that. If I could, I would love Beatport to take them down. Unfortunately, I've got contracts with them, which mean I can't do that. But the amount of people that I meet that hate the stuff they released when they first started is ridiculous.
And can we listen to a few of your tracks and have a chat about them?
We can. Okay, so the first one I guess I was going to play is something that I've released already, if that's all right.
Yep, perfect.
And then the next one is actually something that's going to either come out on my album or come out on an EP after that.
And when are you looking at releasing this one?
So this one came out, well, do you want to hear two new things?
A new and an old sounds good.
Okay, so this one came out on Ouse in December. With Ouse released like Dusky and Bicep and...
Will Saw's label.
That's the one, yeah.
Incredible.
Such a good label. This one that was the lead track off it, called Inkwell, and
So when did you first start working on it? Yeah, come on.
Thanks. So I made that, I probably made that like this time last year. There was actually, that came out of a period of time where I just got a new studio and I wasn't used to the room. This was like 2 months into the new studio and I hadn't made anything I liked at all. I have to say those kind of periods happened to me quite a lot. And you know, this was just, I came up with a bass line and it just kind of rolled from there. Like that whole record I think took me 6 hours, 7 hours to make in total, and it just kind of came quite naturally. Like, yeah, so it was probably the start of June that I finished it, and then I'd already been speaking to Will about releasing it, and about releasing an EP, and that he loved it, and then I guess it just, because of the way release schedules work, it just took until December to actually come out.
But were you excited the whole time, or had you gotten over it before then?
Actually, like, that was one of the tracks, which is why I decided to play it. This is one of the tracks that when I made it, I was excited to play it all the time. It was a bit like when I made Let It Go or Box Clever. Like, there's only been very few tracks throughout my whole kind of career while I've been DJing and producing that's kind of made me want to play it every show, even though I know people have no idea what it is. And that was one of them, and I played that, a lot before it even got mastered or anything. I just kind of did my own shitty master on it, and then, played it.
And how long did it take? You said that you usually like things to be fast and for there to be a natural flow.
So that took me 7 hours.
Was it straight?
No, I did like 3 hours one day, and then I actually went on tour for like the weekend, and then came back, and then worked on it the next week, I think. And I kind of what I started doing is making stuff and putting it on my phone, and then over the weekend I just keep listening to it, and I've got a little jotter, and I write down kind of what I think I should add or take away, and then I go back into the studio, normally completely disregard what I've written, and then finished it off.
And you said you laid down the bass line first. What came after?
The vocal sample came after, and I said the bass line came first. I always lay down a basic beat first. I actually completely changed it with this afterwards, and then so I did the vocal sample, and then I changed the beat, and then I just I found the little riff in the middle, the thing that mimics the bass line, is actually a cut from the vocal, just fucked around with, and then mimicking the bass line, and then that kind of came and gelled it all together.
Did it take you long to chance upon that? Was that about halfway through the process?
Yeah, I suppose so. I kind of wanted to do something like that for ages anyway, and the way the vocal, the a cappella was, it had a perfect moment in it for me to just strip it out and make it into it, so it just kind of came naturally, I think.
That was excellent. So can we listen to the next? What's the name of this one?
So the name of this one is called Cakewalk. This is one that potentially on my album, or if not, on my next EP, I think. Oh, good. There's a nice string that comes in, but fuck it. It takes ages.
Who got really excited from that?
No. Anyway.
Well, personally, I was really impressed with that.
Thanks.
How recently did you make it?
That was made just before I went on my American tour, so that was about 7 weeks ago, or something like that.
So roughly a year between the two tracks.
Essentially, yeah, basically. I mean, that goes into a bit of a deeper section later on, but it takes about 6 minutes to get there, so probably shouldn't listen to that or the whole way through.
What's the deeper section like?
It's just got a string in it. I say it's deeper.
And like when we were talking just then, you said that you're finding it hard to listen to.
I honestly, this is my idea of a nightmare. Like sitting in front of people and playing music that I've made. I absolutely hate it. No, it's fine. It's just I had a meeting with a record label that I'm releasing my album with, and they wanted to hear the demos, and I couldn't even be in the room. I just couldn't. I just don't like it. It just makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't know why. What I was saying earlier, it's like I hear every imperfection that I haven't either been bothered to or just couldn't work out the track, and yeah, I don't know. It just makes me feel uncomfortable.
Is it only when there's one person in the room, or does the crowd factor in?
Oh no, anybody. If it's anybody other than me. So now, like my girlfriend now works at home, which is terrible for me. Because all I'm thinking is, she's just listening to this all the time and thinking it's shit. And
sure, she's not.
And so I can't deal with it. It's something that I've never been good with. It's obviously a self-confidence thing, but you know, it is what it is.
So in terms of making such a thumping track, it really stands out. Like it's definitely not a typical house track at all.
No.
It's more in the realms of techno.
Yeah, which I would say a lot of my club music now is.
And what was the inspiration?
You know, I've started, like you say, listening to a lot more techno, but also I've actually started getting so annoyed by so many people who are making this fucking UK house sound now. They just send me the same track every fucking record, and it's like, for me, my progression is to move on to that, like not to copy anyone else, just to kind of go your own way. And then when I made that was just something I wanted to make. Like didn't necessarily consciously think I have to make something bigger, like sounding tougher. I was just like, this is now what I'm into. Like I don't want to sound like every other person who thinks that they make a track with an EFM bass line is going to make them really big. So I don't know. I don't know really. Like when I sit down to make a track, I sit down. I try. This is another reason why I do it quickly. I try not to think about the process behind it or what I can copy. I'm just trying to sit down and using the idea that's in my head.
And you said you're using a lot of hardware right now.
Yeah.
And what did you use for that one?
So, for that one I used my MS-20. I think I used a Micro Korg and the Dave Smith Tetra. And I think the strings were from my Juno, but I can't remember if they were from the Juno, my actual Juno, or from the Juno I have as a plug-in on the XS24 in Logic. So,
and were the patches new, or were they old ones that you'd worked on for a while?
The lead sound is something that I just kind of made on the MS-20, because I only got that literally a week before. And the other stuff was, the bass is like a bass sound that I've got saved, that I've used actually quite a lot of times before. And the strings are just like the generic Juno strings, because they're so good.
How do you find bringing a new piece of hardware in affects your creative process? Does it get you excited, or is there more of a learning curve involved?
A bit of both, I think. I think that it definitely excites me to use it as much as I can, but it will take you a while to kind of find the best way to integrate it into the way you work. So for the MS-20, there's no presets, can't save anything at all. It's all just knobs because it's all modular. So you have to change it all the time. So you have to kind of just go with it or note down what it is. But it takes a while for your mind to get used to that, like from just clicking through a preset and being like, right, this is the right one. to actually going through and fiddling with the knobs every time you kind of start the synth up. I think that takes a while. I'm still not completely used to the MS-20. Like that synth was used like playing like 2 notes and then sampling it and then fucking around with it actually in Logic.
It sounds like it must be quite fun still.
Oh yeah, it's really
Getting to
fun.
know
I
an
love it.
instrument like
I love
that.
it. I have to say, production is still where my heart lies, I think. Like, if I could, I would just lock myself in my studio and just try and make the best music I can. But saying that, I still love coming. I mean, how many people get to come to Australia and play like once a year, do you know? I'm pretty happy with that.
Well, thank you so much for coming and chatting today. I'd like to thank you on behalf of the audience. I'm sure that everyone's been really pleased to hear everything, and to hear an unreleased track really is a big honour. I didn't know that would be bestowed upon us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we get a round of applause? Huxley, everyone. And now we're going to be taking some questions from the audience. So, do we have anyone who wants to start?
Yes.
I see a hand there first.
Guy in the good hat.
Thanks for coming out. Thanks for being so honest and I guess pretty human about your process. Like, you obviously embody all of that self-doubt and paranoia that, I don't know, a large percentage of my producer friends also have. So
Yeah.
thanks for being honest about that.
That's okay.
You seem to have some regret about your earlier releases.
I don't know if regret is the right word. I'm still immensely proud of the stuff that I made before, because it's my journey of getting here. At the end of the day, you don't wake up wanting to be a producer and then you make a massive record unless you're going to pay someone else to make it for you. So I don't regret the actual music. I just regret maybe some of the choices of maybe I shouldn't have released it. Maybe I shouldn't have put it with that label. Maybe I should have waited until it was better. Like, that's the only thing I regret. I don't actually regret making the music. I don't think you should regret making the music ever. It's just choosing the right labels. I released with a couple of labels now that I hate the fact that I did it. And even at the time I had my misconceptions about them, but I still did it because I thought at the time no one else was going to release my records. I think looking back, I'd rather no one release my records and then go push forward into the people that I actually respect and actually want to work with.
Was that because of the label's reputation or because of the music itself?
I think especially one record label now, like the fact that I released on them, and don't get me wrong, they're doing really well, but the fact that I released anything with them really kind of grates on me now. I'm not going to name any names, but yeah, and even at the time I had my misconceptions. I think that's the thing. It doesn't matter necessarily the size of the record label. You just need to feel comfortable putting your music out on it, basically.
Any other questions? I saw your hand go up first.
Cheers. When you're making your music and you say you're working on an album, when you sit down at the studio, do you know this is going to be, like, before you started making it, this is going to be an album track or
No.
a single?
Basically, I have now, for my album, I've made 20 to 25 tracks, and I have a firm idea what is going to work and what isn't, but I never sit down and think I'm going to make this for the album. I used to sit down and think, oh my god, I just need to make a massive record, fucking hell, like what's happening? Like, Jesus Christ, I've already made one, why can't I make another? And then I find you make your worst work ever. So like, you might as well just sit down and make music. That's the best way, like enjoy what you do. If it's not very good, it's not very good, but then if it's great, then that's, amazing, yeah.
Are they like are you trying to achieve something differently by making an album?
Well, the thing is, one of the reasons I made the album was because I was getting bored. I was getting pigeonholed quite hard into a certain sound. And the thing is, like I said before, I don't necessarily even listen or play that kind of music that regularly. And I guess the album was a bit more like, I want to show people that I can actually write songs, I can write different kinds of music, different genres. I always have in the past. Like, I used to make hip hop. a long time ago. I obviously started in garage, and I suppose like I didn't sit down and think this is going to be an album track. I just kind of sat down and tried to make music again rather than just make house or make techno.
Hey, Sonia, how are you?
Good.
That's good. I was just going to ask, with like your experience in London and how like deep it's been, and then coming to Melbourne and the scene being so raw here, like, do you feel that when you come here, and like are there differences to Melbourne and to London?
I mean, there's definite differences. The scene here, I think the thing is, with London, there's a lot more people that are cynical, a lot more snobs in a way, to be honest, which isn't all like necessarily a good thing, because I think a lot of the people in London who actually live in London, like everybody that comes to the party in London is from Essex or Bromley, which like is outside London anyway. Like a lot of the people who operate in London have a very snobby way of thinking about music, whereas you come somewhere like here and it's a lot more kind of open, like you can, I'm not necessarily saying either one is better, because I don't know, but like you come here and you don't necessarily have the amount of people that are saying, oh, you can, if you're playing that record, like you're shit, or like if you're playing that kind of house music, you're shit. People listen to it in a lot more kind of innocent way, which I think is really good. And you still do get that in London, but London for me has become a little bit too jaded. I don't necessarily like, there's like two places I like playing in London, which is XOYO and Fabric. Apart from that, I hate it, to be honest, but you know, that's the way it is.
What about Melbourne, like coming here last time and to now, have you seen progression at all?
Well, I think last time I came here, the kind of sound that I was known for was a lot more in its infancy than it is now. So I think there's definitely been progression in terms of people wanting to come out and see it. Yeah, I think so. I mean, the scenes here, like here in Sydney, and I haven't been to Perth yet, but my friend Moscow was there, and he said he had an amazing time there last time. So I'm interested to see what that's like as well. Like here in America, obviously Australia's a lot more ahead of America, but everybody seems to be progressing quite nicely, I think. I mean, over here the scene is crazy, right? In the summer, you have like guests every weekend, pretty much.
We love you coming, so thanks.
Thank you.
Nice to see some love coming from the audience. Red Stripey.
Where's Wally?
Yeah, exactly.
So what's in terms of like obviously approaching labels, how do you feel? I guess the thing about being a producer is protection. So, you know, you're putting your label up on SoundCloud, you're going, right, I'm going to approach this label and to demo it.
Yeah.
What sort of protections do you feel like? Should you give them the whole track or give them a part of the track, or?
If it's a reputable label, you should feel no problem giving them the full track. No label that I work with or know at a certain level is ever going to give your track away to people. If you send it to someone that you don't trust, you've never heard of, like, that you can tell are not going to, then don't send them the whole track. Like, for example, sending a track to someone like 2020 Vision, if they don't like it, they're not just going to like leak the shit out of your track. That's not the way that a proper professional business works. Just, I wouldn't worry too much about protection, especially when you start off. I mean, the thing is, like, I used to hate piracy anyway, but at the end of the day, the more people that want to download your record means the more people that are actually interested in what you're making. So, and you're never ever going to get rich out of record sales from underground house music. So, who cares? Like, yeah, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. I don't worry at all. I'd always send a full track.
And it'd be great to get a question from the back, so I'm going to scan. I can't actually see any hands.
No,
If there's
just the
anyone
hat
with
in
hands
front.
at the back, you're missing out right now. You should run forward. Hat in the back. Or hat in the back.
You said like you get sent a lot of contrived shit, like UK house sort of sounds.
Yeah.
And obviously the way to make music like that is listen to loads of shit UK contrived house. So
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
what do you listen to like out of maybe the normal stuff that's popular right now that's like influencing you at the moment?
That's a good question. So, I I listen to things like Jonas Cop and more techno kind of stuff at the moment when I'm listening to house or techno. But really, to be completely honest, when I'm in my car or when I'm listening to music, I listen to a lot of soul music and a lot of stuff like Bonobo and Forte and Caribou and all that kind of thing. I obviously listen to house music. It would be stupid for me to say I don't, but like that's not the kind of music that I would relax to. And I think that I'd rather take my influences from elsewhere and then turn it into my own form of like dance music, if you want to call it that, than just listen to one style of music and be like, oh right, now I want to fit in with this style of music. That's not the way that I work. I don't think anyone should work like that, basically.
And do we have any more questions in the audience? Oh, we have 2 more. All right.
When you started out, I imagine you did spend a great deal of time grinding away trying to get a sound that approximated a sort of more commercial sound, or at least a sound that you felt comfortable with. What was that kind of sound that you first broke into, and how did you feel like I'm comfortable expressing myself outside of this kind of vibe?
Well, when I first started making music, it was UK garage. So I was listening to a lot of people like MJ Cole and Wookie and LB and all those kind of guys, and I wanted to just be amongst those kind of people. And I was quite lucky that I had a bit of success in garage, but not anything worthwhile. But it kind of showed to me what I was saying earlier, that you shouldn't follow the trend. Because everybody that I've seen succeed in house music, really, like in a longevity sort of way, has done their own thing. Like, look at Dixon, look at how big he is. How many people were playing melodic house music, like house and techno, like he does, before he got big. I mean, even to an extent, look what Dusky did. I mean, they took what I have done to a completely different standpoint. They've carved their own niche out of it. I think you just need to be confident in your own vision, which I know sounds a little bit kind of...
What gave you that confidence?
It was failing at trying to sound like other people.
I like that, man. That's nice.
Basically.
Okay.
And also it's just... I'm as a person, I don't know how to say this really, but like I've never been really good at copying other people anyway. So I realised quite early on that if I was going to do that, I was going to fail, and that's kind of what taught me to just follow your own dream, basically.
Thanks, man. That was cool.
And I know that we did have one more question, and this will be the final one.
You said you get a lot of like promo materials sent to you. What actually engages you, and like what just pisses you off and turns you off?
Honestly, quite a lot of it pisses me off. Not because I love the fact that people spend the time sending me the music, but you get to a point where you get so much music that it's physically impossible to listen to all of it. What actually engages me these days is either an innovative way of doing it, like someone sent me, like people that send me records, I always listen to those. Obviously I know that's quite difficult for a lot of people these days. The other times is I have like about 5, I know this is going to sound bad, promo companies that I trust, and they pick the labels they want to promote, and I trust what they pick. And so I kind of stick to them. If not, then it's friends or it's people giving me USBs at gigs. If they do that, then I always check it, like the fact that someone's come out and had effort to actually give me something. That means a lot, rather than someone just buying my email off a list and like adding me to their Label Works promo and then just sending me like 4 emails a day trying to get their record. If anything, that turns me off. So it's more that it's that effort that really kind of makes me want to listen to it and engage.
Cool. Cheers.
Thanks for the questions, guys. They were a great set. You put me to shame. Excellent replies. Really want to thank Novel Touring for bringing you out. Great choice. Bring him back.
Big up, Dom.
I'd also like to thank Pilgrim for filming everything right now. And just thank you so much for coming and talking.
Thank you for having me.
It means so much to CDR, so much to the audience. Someone will watch it and tell us if it's